Hey, namaste everybody. All right, the clown thing, balloon twisting thing is not doing so well at the moment. So luckily last year, well, 2020 this year, at the conventions, I decided I was going to start doing photo frames as an upsell at parties. So I invested in some equipment. Good idea. So now I'm doing lawn art and photo frames possibly, so that might be an option. So what I have here is I turned my garage into my little balloon studio. So I've got my pumps, I've got my air compressor pump, which is right there, the Penguin, and then I picked up this little dual air sizer, which is great. So got that from All American, and I got some balloons. So I'm trying to use what I have in stock. So I don't want to like use new inventory, so I'm trying to use stuff that I like, odd prints that I've been sitting on forever. So I'm making flowers with those. So I'm gonna take it. So one side of this flower is grand opening, grand opening, grand opening. The other side is just a pretty flower. So I'm gonna take you on a quick tour. So what I've been doing is I've been doing a wind test. So I actually have a photo frame that I made last week. It blew over because I had copper pipes and those bent. So now I've got the driveway stakes and I have it stringed and staked down with basically just long nails and a big roll of string I have. So that's what I got going on in the backyard. I also got my apron on, which is a great thing to have for this. So it has saved me from like having to get up and go to my bag and get up and go to my bag and get up and go to my bag. And I need this and go to my bag and I need a 260. Let's find one on the floor. The apron's great. So, all right, so what I have here is I have a bunch of different size yard displays. So what I've been Okay, anybody that really knows me knows I like to recycle, reuse, repurpose whenever I can. So with this whole COVID thing and trying to come up with different ways of keeping the business going, we are, and a lot of us are, not only me, but it seems like a lot of us balloon twisters are going to yard art because birthday parties have now gone from the basement with 20 kids to let's just drive by the house. So, but we could still offer something, so that's the plan. Okay, so very, very basic. So I'm using for yard art, balloon art. I'm using the fiberglass driveway markers. I can get them locally here, at least in the fall, too, for $1. Online, they're running just under $1 a piece, so not a bad deal. So these are great. I've had them in the yard testing. They seem to work fine. So what I'm doing is I'm working on an Elsa right now, so I'm going to do some twisty display art as well, because it's kind of what I do. So you want to take a 350 balloon, just slide it on top. I'm sure we've all kind of done this before. Slide it on top there until it bottoms out. And then what I do is I basically just hold the pole straight, take that 350, stretch it all the way down. If you can, give the pole a little bit of a twist. It's a little bit difficult, but it actually makes the balloon cling to the pole a little bit more. So what I leave here is I leave about, I don't know, 4, 8, and 12 fingers or so. And that's what's going to go into the ground. Take a little scrap piece of 260, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to wrap that around super tight. So get that around as tight as you can, wrap it around a whole bunch of times, and then just tie it off. And now what you've got is you've got your pole covered, and preferably the same color you're going to do the balloon in, and you don't have to go out and buy paint or anything else. So as long as you got 350s, and I got a bunch of old ones here that I'm not using for anything, and I don't trust them, so those are going to be for covering my poles. All right, so what I have here is I have 1/2-inch PVC. It's a 10-foot pole that I cut in half, and then, like I said, you can either take a razor blade, X-Acto knife, kind of scrape around the edges to make it a little bit soft so it's not so sharp. Or you could take sandpaper, file, or if you have duct tape, just slap duct tape on it. What that's going to do is it makes the edges so it doesn't rip the balloon. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover this with a balloon instead of painting it. So I've got 646s here that I don't use that often. So I figured I'm using 350s to cover the driveway stakes, and I can use 646s to cover the 1/2-inch PVC and get it almost all the way down to the bottom, leaving me enough room that I could just put a cluster of rounds and stuff and cover it up nicely. But the majority of the pole is covered. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a 646, blow it up about halfway. Now what I did is I tied the knot, but I didn't pull the knot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give that a little bit of a pull. And what that's going to do, I'm not going to squeeze it to pop that out. I want that to be a little bit heavier on the latex around that very tip there. So by pulling that knot and leaving that there, I'm making that nice and thick. You can kind of see this with the transparent balloon. All right, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your pole, you're gonna set the knot right on the tip. Be very careful you do not point this at your face because this has become spring-loaded. All right, and then you're gonna take that 646 and you're gonna slowly squeeze it and slide that balloon over your pole. Now what you wanna do is get it all the way down to where the pole touches the very top of the 646. Got it? And then at that point, let it up just a little bit. Give it a squeeze and hold on to that pole. So I've got the pole now. That's not coming out there. So it's pretty close. Now, if you're a twister, you might be able to do this. I gotta use my knee. But what you wanna do is you wanna twist off a small bubble. Just a small bubble on the very end of that 646. Pop it. Try not to explode it. And then just let the air out. Don't let go of that piece down there. And just let all the air out. So now that balloon is kind of stuck on there, just like that. So you've got it basically halfway down. And then from here, you just find the hole that you made, slip that over the top of the pipe, and then just bring that down. And that should slide all the way down. If you want to, you can kind of go up and just kind of give it a little bit of a pull to loosen it up a little bit. Bring it down. Literally, that's a 5-foot pole. I've got probably about, I'd say a foot, maybe. Probably more like 10 inches. All right, then you find a scrap piece of 260s you have laying around. I got a lot of those laying around. Now, don't let go of that. And while you're holding on to that, you want to take your 260 and wrap that around there. As tight as you can possibly get it. Without that coming undone. All right, so once you get that tied off, now you actually have a 5-foot PVC pipe covered in the same color balloon that you're going to decorate it with, as long as you have a 646 for that. So, but that's an easy way to cover it without paint. And it doesn't hurt to actually put a 260 around the top as well. Okay, yeah, so I was kind of thinking the same thing. It is kind of difficult to do with an inflated 646. You can do it with uninflated ones. I've tried it 3 times and every time it's ripped at the neck. So, but even after it ripped at the neck, I was able to still take the balloon and pull it down and it still work. So either way will work. So to do it that way, you take a 646. What I did is I inflated it twice. And then what I did is I went through on the nozzle and then I just kind of like went back into it a little bit. And then from there, slid it onto my pipe. And then stretched it, but holding onto that nozzle, the way the balloon tapers down, because it's really wide and then it tapers down to the knot, right there in that little taper area, it's ripped 3 times on me. But then, like I said, after it ripped, I still went through and stretched it, and it seemed to work. And right now I've got, you know, a little over a foot there. So, but like I said, I actually put a big cluster of rounds on the bottom to kind of soften it from the grass. And I'm not too concerned about seeing a little bit of PVC on the bottom. The center going through the middle when I'm doing 260s twisted or 350s twisted or other clusters, I like to have the pipe covered. All right, I got a warning for you. If you're gonna use the fiberglass rods, the ones I have are kind of old. I've been using them in the driveway for years and I've got like 30 of them. So it's kind of what I'm starting out with. But one thing you gotta be very careful. Fiberglass has splinters and they hurt. Don't mess with it. Try not to cut it if you can. Just buy them the way they are, cover them, use them. And also try not to slide your hand down too much. I'm doing it here on the sticker. Because if there's any little burrs or spurs sticking out of there, they're gonna go in your skin and they're gonna stay there for a while. This one you can tell is frayed a little bit on there. So I don't know if you could see that, but yeah, this one's a little bit cracked, so I'm not even gonna use it. I might use it with PVC over it just for my samples, but yeah, that's something you gotta be very careful with fiberglass. Okay, so one of the things I'm doing in the twisted balloon art for the yards is I'm making palm trees and I'm putting koala bears on them and monkeys, and then I don't know, I'll figure something else to put on them. But I figured out something with the palm trees as far as keeping the palm straight. Blow it up just a little bit, not too much. So something about softball, maybe a little bit smaller. Tie your knot and stretch that knot all the way to the end. So you got, boop, so it bulges out. So you can squeeze that to the knot. Twist off your first bubble on the top where your knot is, hold on to that, and then split these 2. So now you got 3, and then you just kind of twist them all in together. And then you have that little bunch, and that'll keep your palm straight. Bonus, it looks like coconuts. Then you could put bananas in the tree. All right, so I've got these wrapped in 3 260s. So what you want to do is when you put them in, attach a 260 each in between each one of the little bubbles here. And then what you want to do is put it on the same thing on the very bottom where you're going to stop. And then as you do the 260s, you can just wrap them around that 3 bubble that you have there on the bottom and then pop them off and break it and make it even. All right, quick tip on using 260s for lawn art. Make them soft. You're dealing with different elements that we used to deal with in birthday parties and festivals and that kind of stuff. Well, maybe not so much festivals, but they're sitting outside in the sun all day long, jiggling and wiggling around. So definitely want to make them soft. Same with Mylars. You want to make your Mylars soft because they will expand. Mylars, of course, don't expand and they will pop or at least, deflate. 260s, at least you get a little bit more leeway because they are flexible and then they kind of do shrink and contract and expand and whatever. But what I suggest whenever you're doing it, every time you do a twist, and I actually do this anyway and it works out really well, every time you do a twist, just do that. Just give that balloon a little bit of a squeeze. And what that does is that will soften it up for the next twist. And every time you twist, you do a little squeeze, little squeeze, little squeeze. Each individual bubble will then become a little bit softer and more flexible. Okay, so what I'm doing now with the 5 foot is I've been using 2 of the driveway markers. This one I only have 1. So what I've also been doing is tying the PVC down with a 260. So you go down to the bottom of the yards, the driveway stick, you tie a 260 right in the center, so you got 2 pieces. You bring those up and wrap those around the balloons and then tie it into where the PVC pipe is. This way the PVC pipe's not going to slide off. That's kind of my thinking. So testing it now, everything seems to be okay. So what I have here, as you can tell, I've got that blue 260 in there. And that actually goes down and it's attached and tied to the very base. And then I wrap it around those balloons to kind of hold it up. Because otherwise these things would have tilted and flown halfway down the road. Because we do have some wind today. So what I did is I did 3 separate clusters. And then I actually put them onto my yardstick. So what I'm actually going to do is take an uninflated 260s. Even though I wrap the balloons around the pole, I'm going to wrap these around the clusters and then around the stick as well. Because I've noticed that sometimes if a 260 pops and it's the one that's holding the whole cluster on, the whole thing can fly down the street. I got it. Ah. Ow. Okay. So now I've wrapped all 3 of those clusters into there. So I'm going to go put that out in the yard. Now, when I tie them together, I'll take 2 of them, I'll tie them together. So what I used to do is when I did that knot, I used to pull that knot. I don't pull that knot anymore. Now I actually take the balloons and pull the balloons. Now it just made that knot tighter, but then I also have this to wrap around the pole. Okay, so I don't know why it took me 3 days. No idea. I finally went down to the basement and got me a decor apron. They're great to have. I haven't had to get up and go get something in 10 minutes. That's awesome. Okay, we're gonna do this, people.